We are drawing closer and closer to the release of Scarlet and Violet, and I just know people are going to play this deck just to spite. Hey, Nick from TCG, and today we're going to be looking at a post-rotation deck. This is one of the most popular, or at least what we expect to be a very popular deck post-rotation. A lot of people were initially calling it the best deck in format, and it is Gardevoir EX, and I guess some other stuff as well. So, you know, there's really not much else to do except talk about the deck. But before we do, if you haven't already, do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. Tells YouTube this is a good channel and other people should watch it. I mean, Gardevoir, I don't, why do psychic decks have to be unbelievably good, but meanwhile we can barely get a functioning fighting type deck? It's ridiculous. I mean, I know you're gonna say Rapid Strike Urshifu was ridiculous, but like, come on. Other than that, what do we got? What do I have? I have nothing. Why must you take everything from me? So I'm going to show this deck without my face because I want to give you as much real estate as possible without my stupid face covering it up. Now, of course, we are playing a Gardevoir EX deck, which means we need Ralts. Now, we do have two different Ralts it's worth mentioning. We have one from Silver Tempest with the Memory Skip. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks. During your next turn, that Pokemon can't use that attack. This isn't bad if we're going second. It's our first turn going second, and we got the Ralts in the active. Maybe not a terrible way to kind of start off the turn. You know, prevent our opponent from using, like, this is where it gets weird though, because like our next turn, our opponent can use, like, let's say it's an Arceus V. We can tell them, oh, you can't use Trinity Charge next turn, but they can just evolve and then use Trinity Nova. So unless you're going against a basic Pokemon that doesn't evolve, Ralts here might not be the best use, which is why we only have one copy of it, and we do have 3 copies of the Teleportation Burst, which says that when we use this attack, we switch it with one of our bench Pokemon. So pretty cool. Ralts does, of course, evolve into Kirlia. So this Kirlia has the Refinement ability that we can discard a card from our hand to draw 2. It's trade. It's just a trade. We're changing the name. Now it's called Refinement. Worth noting that Kirlia has 80 HP, and that's going to be important later. You probably already figured out why. Now, before we get into the big Gardevoir EX, we do have some other Pokemon we got to look at. First off is a Gardevoir. This is the Chilling Rain Gardevoir. Yes, it's a proxy, and you can see we have the Astral Radiance Glade. So Kirlia has the benefit, and this is something that's really cool with Pokemon EXs and these evolving single prize Pokemon into something like EXs, that we can evolve them. Kirlia, anyway, has a branched evolution, so we can evolve into either the Gardevoir or the Glade. Gardevoir has the ability Shining Arcana. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and attach any number of basic energy cards you find there to your Pokemon in any way you want. Put the other cards into your hand. Ridiculously strong ability. Brainwave for 3 colorless energies. It does 60, and then it does 30 more damage for each psychic energy attached to this Pokemon. So if we need to attack with a single prizer, we can power this thing up pretty easily between using Shining Arcana and also Glade, Gardevoir EX's ability, things like that. So we can get 3 energies onto this thing potentially pretty quickly. That does not include attaching for turn. So the basic Gardevoir here can do some pretty decent damage. Then we have Glade with the Buddy Catch ability. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it to your hand, shuffle your deck. Just a really cool way of, like, that's so bright. Oh my goodness. Just a really cool way to, like, find a supporter. We need to find a boss's orders for turn. We need to find a, I don't know, like a research or whatever it is we need to find. We can go ahead and get it with Glade. One of the ways we're going to power up our Pokemon early game is the Zacian V from Celebrations. It has the Roar of the Sword ability. Once during your turn, search your deck for a Psychic Energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck. If you use this ability, your turn ends. Now, it is worth noting that it's not a bad ability for a deck like this, where we are going to be setting up our Ralts and evolving into Kirlias, Glades, Gardevoirs, EXs, things like that. We can also attach this to itself. Storm Slash does 60 damage, and it does 30 more damage for each Psychic Energy attached to this Pokemon. It's exactly the same as Brainwave, just now called Storm Slash, and it's on a 2-prize Pokemon. Another Pokemon that we have is Weirdeer V. This Astral Radiance Pokemon has 220 health, retreat cost of 2, Frontier Road. Once during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from the bench to the active spot, you may move any energies from your other Pokemon to it, and then Psyseal Bash does 40 damage times the number of energy attached to this Pokemon, and that's 3 colorless energies. So we can use any energies. This deck uses all psychic energies, and it's just a really cool way to power this thing up really quickly and do a bunch of damage. You already noticed Roar the Shield accelerates energies, Shining Arcana accelerates energies, and we haven't talked about our main Pokemon for the deck yet, and that is Gardevoir EX, which has the Psychic Embrace ability. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic Energy from your discard pile to one of your Psychic Pokemon. If you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. You can't use this ability if it was going to knock out the Pokemon you're attaching energies to. So, for example, this Zacian V has 220 health. I cannot use Psychic Embrace onto a Zacian that has 200 damage. I can't use Psychic Embrace twice onto a Zacian V that has 180 damage, because the first one will put 20, bringing it to 200 damage, and then the second one would KO it, and I can't do that. So, important to know that little rule. So, I got 2 Gardevoir EXs and Miraculous Force for 2 Psychic and a Colorless. This Pokemon heals from all special conditions, whatever, but it does do 190, so that 190 is pretty nice. We have some other Pokemon in the deck as well. Radiant Greninja here is going to help us discard energy cards to get them in the discard, so we can use Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace ability, and it also lets us draw a couple of cards. And our last Pokemon is Klefki. This new Klefki from Silver Tempest, from Scarlet and Violet, has the Prank Lock ability. As long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, each player's basic Pokemon in play have no ability except for Prank Lock. So, a single Klefki can turn off Radiant Greninja, can turn off Zacian V, can turn off Weirdeer V. They're all basic Pokemon. It does not specify they have to be non-rule box or rule box. It just says basic Pokemon. These 3 are all basic Pokemon, which can be really, really annoying. We have 11 Psychic Energies in the deck. Nothing really crazy about that. And then we're just going to move on to our item cards. We got a bunch of different items. We already said we got to get Weirdeer into the active, so the easiest way to do that is just to play Switch. We got 2 copies of Switch, and this is going to allow us to move our bench Pokemon to the active spot. We're probably going to use it for something like Weirdeer. Maybe we want to get a Klefki out of the active. Maybe we want to get that Zacian V out of the active. Whatever. We just switch a Pokemon. Next is our Pokemon search options, and we have a buttload of them. We're going to be starting off with 4 copies of Level Ball, which lets us search a deck for Pokemon with 90 HP or less. That includes Klefki, that includes Ralts, and also Curlier. Earlier I said that Curlier has 80 HP, and that's important to know, and this is why. We can search it with Level Ball. We also need to be able to get some other basic Pokemon like our Zacian, our Weirdeer, our Radiant Greninja, and that's where something like Nest Ball comes in. Search a deck for a basic Pokemon and put it onto your bench. But what about our evolution Pokemon? What about something like the Gardevoir EX? What about our Glade or whatever? We do have Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from our hand and search a deck for any Pokemon that you want. This is kind of nice because we can discard those Psychic Energies like we said earlier, so we can use Psychic Embrace. So things like Radiant Greninja, Ultra Ball, they do kind of work here. Even manually retreating a Pokemon can be useful at times to discard those Psychic Energies, so we can use Psychic Embrace to power things up, which is why we only have 2 copies of Switch. We do have some other ways of finding those Psychic Energies so we can discard them. We have Fog Crystal. 4 copies of Fog Crystal allows us to find a basic Psychic Pokemon or a basic Psychic Energy. So we can find that Zacian V, the Klefki, or, whatever. We got a lot of access to our deck between things like all the Pokemon search and Fog Crystals. It also allows us to search that energy, so we can discard the energy with Radiant Greninja, draw an extra 2 cards, Psychic Embrace that energy over onto something, and then still attach for turn. That is an incredible start of the game. occasionally we're going to want to skip evolutions. We might want to go straight from Ralts to Gardevoir EX or Gardevoir or whatever. We got to skip that Curlier stage. We got to get that Gardevoir out immediately. So we do have 2 copies of Rare Candy, but I know what you're thinking, Nick. How on earth are we going to find 2 copies of Rare Candy? We don't have a ton of ways to search items in this deck, and our answer is Forest Seal Stone. Let's just search our deck for any card we want. We're going to be able to attach this to either the Weirdeer or the Zacian. Spoilers, it's probably going to be the Zacian more often than not because, well, we will only want to put that Weirdeer in when we're ready to attack with it. The Zacian is going to be used early game to start setting up. So it's more likely that the Forest Seal Stone goes on to the Pokemon that's going to be in play more times than not. So Star Alchemy is an ability that lets us search our deck for literally any card we want, which is really, really nice. We want to search for that Gardevoir because we have the Rare Candy. We can do it. We need to search for the Rare Candy because we have the Gardevoir or the Ultra Ball. We can go ahead and do it. It just opens up our entire deck to whatever we want. Now we have to go on to the supporters of course though, and we're going to be starting with Cheryl. Cheryl's a really interesting one, and it kind of lends into the strategy of using Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace damages our Pokemon that we put the energy onto. So if we put a bunch of energies onto Gardevoir EX, we're going to damage it really, really heavily. It's going to be really easy to KO. So what we do is we put a bunch of energies onto the Gardevoir, move Weirdeer into the active, move all those energies to the Weirdeer, and then Cheryl, because Cheryl requires you to discard all energies attached to your evolution Pokemon and then heal all damage. So, we'll talk about that combo in just a minute, but basically, we have a way to heal that Gardevoir for free after accelerating a ton of energies to it. It's really, really cool. A brand new supporter is Miriam. Shuffle up to 5 Pokemon from your discard pile into your deck, then draw 3. Not the greatest supporter in the world, but being able to recover something like our Weirdeer, Klefki's, or Radiant Greninja, maybe like a Ralts, Curly, or whatever, can be really important. Maybe we have to have like just a really unfortunate Professor's Research early game. We still have some recovery options. We're going to be losing things like Ordinary Rod to rotation, so being able to recover those Pokemon and then draw a few cards is not a bad thing. And we have a fair amount of Pokemon search, as we already see on the screen. So maybe something like a Clara could be useful. Maybe something like Rescue Carrier could maybe be useful. But Rescue Carrier only lets you get Pokemon of 90 HP or less. So you can't use it to get like your Weirdeers and your Gardevoirs. We do have 1 copy of Roxanne. It's a little bit of a disruption, a little bit of a comeback card, something that Pokemon promised we'd be getting in Scarlet and Violet is more comeback mechanics, so we'll have to see how that actually happens. But if our opponent has taken 3 or more prizes, we can play Roxanne. Both players shuffle their hands into their deck. We draw 6, our opponent draws 2. So you can really, really try to slow down your opponent by using Roxanne. Gardevoir EX gives up 2 prizes, so our opponent knocks out that Weirdeer, gives up 2 prizes. Gardevoir EX gives up 2 prizes. So they knock out that Klefki, and then they knock out a Weirdeer, they knock out a Gardevoir. They're going to be down to 3 prizes faster than you know it. Maybe we're having a little trouble setting up, and they go through a couple of Ralts or a couple of single prize Pokemon. We're able to try to use this Roxanne to recover and buy us some time. Speaking of recovering and buying a little time, you can use Boss's Orders to either stall out Pokemon, we kind of keep them in the active, or we just boss it up to KO. Maybe there's a big, juicy 2-prize Pokemon on our opponent's bench that's already damaged, and we can knock it out with Miraculous Force. Maybe there's something that we just absolutely have to take out immediately, and we use Weirdeer V and just obliterate it because we get a massive amount of energies onto Weirdeer. Something like that. Boss's Orders is very, very useful. We also played 2 copies of Judge. It's just another way of trying to keep our opponent's hand size down. Lost Box is expected to be really, really solid anytime. We're also losing Marnie, so we want some type of hand disruption, and that's where Judge comes in. Both players shuffle their hand into their deck and draw 4. Our final supporter is going to be 4 copies of Professor's Research, and man, Professor's Research is such a powerful, impactful supporter. Discard your hand, draw 7. That means we can get rid of a bunch of psychic energies. We can get rid of cards we don't need. See fresh 7 cards and make some serious plays happen. And then our final 2 cards is the Primordial Altar. This card came in Silver Tempest. Once during a turn, each player may look at the top card of the deck and then discard it. You don't draw it, right? You don't just, maybe I'll just put it down here. You do not draw it if you look at it. So let's say this is our deck. We use Primordial Altar. We look at the top card. It's a psychic energy. Do I want to keep it? No, it goes in the discard. Do I want to keep it? Yes, it goes back on top of the deck. That's kind of how that works. It's not like a trekking shoes where you look at the top card of your deck, discard it, or decide if you want to keep it. That's pretty much the whole deck. And we'll just talk briefly a little. Oh my goodness. That's the whole deck. We're going to talk about some basic strategies and how to use this deck. So this is a pretty realistic setup in terms of this is the Pokemon we start, we got our hand, we top deck. Oh look, we find a Radiant Greninja, that's incredible. We can go ahead and play the Radiant Greninja down. Now we can start doing stuff, right? One of the things that we can use, like I mentioned, is that Fog Crystal, so we can go ahead and either find a basic energy or find a basic Pokemon. In this case, we're going to search our deck for a basic psychic energy so we can make use of Greninja. This deck isn't shuffled, so we'll go ahead and shuffle it up. I do have access to the Forest Seal Stone if I want to search the deck for anything I want. I have an Ultra Ball if I want to search the deck for something like a Ralts, which I really do want to get a Ralts into play as early as possible, so I can start evolving it into Curlier, discard cards using Refinement, draw more, and then just get ready to start utilizing that Gardevoir EX. And this Fog Crystal, searching for the basic Psychic Energy, that sets me up for later in the game. It lets me start using that Gardevoir's ability, start powering things up. It just lets me have access to more of my deck's strategy. So if I don't have to use this Forest Seal Stone to set up, I'm not going to. But I'm going to get a minimum 1 card attachment from this turn because of Roar the Sword on the Zacian V. So I think that's shuffled enough. I think that's, fair at least. So we can go ahead. We'll get the deck. Okay, we got our Fog Crystal is in the discard. We got the energy. We're going to use it to discard. And now we get to draw 2 cards. Look at that. A Ralts, 2 Ralts. Beautiful. That's incredible. Now I can go ahead, play Primordial Altar, and I can see, do I want to keep this card? It's a Boss's Orders. Right now, no, I probably don't. We're not playing against anything, so I don't have any real reason to keep it. And now we just go ahead and use Roar the Sword. Search the deck. Oh, okay, cool. We got a Psychic Energy. I know I didn't set up any prizes. We'll just, 2, 4, 6, whatever. I just want to make sure they're not all Curliers or something. Yeah, these would be realistic prizes right there. It would be unfortunate to have the both Gardevoir and Glade prized, but it is something that can happen. So we got our prizes. Okay, fine. And now we would just shuffle our deck after using Roar the Sword, and we would be able to just start making some plays happen this following turn. One of the cool things about Primordial Altar Radiant Greninja is I can use Primordial Altar first, see if I like what I'm going to draw off the Greninja, and then use Radiant Greninja's ability to draw into it, or I can dig an extra card deeper by discarding the top card off of the Primordial Altar. The reason I didn't do it on that first turn is because I felt there'd be a pretty good chance I find a Level Ball, Nest Ball, Curlier, something off of the Greninja, and I did. So, really nice. And now it'll be our opponent's turn. They go, okay, they do their thing. Now it's my turn. Okay, we draw. We find a Klefki. Not the most useful thing in the world, but what I can do is I can Ultra Ball the switch into Klefki, and I can find myself a Gardevoir. Get myself a Gardevoir EX. I could get a Curlier and then Refinement, but for now, we're going to go ahead and get the Gardevoir EX. Now I go ahead, play the Rare Candy, evolve, boom, easy. I can attach here the Forest Seal Stone, and I can use the Forest Seal Stone, right? We have that V-Star marker to find any card I want. In this case, I would just find a Professor's Research. because I don't have anything in the hand. I don't have anything to really do. So we can start making some decent plays happen and just kind of getting this deck going, getting this deck off the ground. There's a pretty good chance off the research. Again, I find a level ball. I find something that lets me evolve and that routes the other bench routes into a Curlia. I can also start attacking. It's a very good chance that I can start attacking with the Zacian if I need to this turn, because Storm Slash does do 60 plus 30 for each Psychic Energy attached to it. So I get 3 Psychic Energies. I'm doing an extra 90 damage. So enough to knock out probably whatever my opponent has in the active, assuming they're also playing some type of like single prize deck or single prize evolution deck like this. Okay. Professor's Research, there's 3, and there's 4. Cool. So we draw. We don't find anything. We can Primordial Altar. We get a Psychic Energy. I want to discard that. Don't want it right now. I have one in hand, and now I can use Psychic Embrace to attach 1. And if I want, I have the other Psychic Energy in here. I can attach to either the Gardevoir to start setting it up, or to the to something like this Zacian. We have the Weird Deer in hand as well, so you know what we can do is attach here. I can bench the Weird Deer if I'm not concerned they're going to knock out that Zacian. Then I could attach to the Gardevoir. Even if they do knock out this Zacian, what I can do is promote something, try to find a switch, and then just send up the... Watch, you'll see. You'll see what the plan is. So we got this 4 damage counters onto the Zacian. It has 180 health left. It's going to be pretty easy to KO, but I knock out something and I get a prize. Look at that. I get a nest ball. Lovely. Okay, now it's my turn again. Let's pretend that they knock this thing out. I got 3 energies into the discard. We're going to go ahead and why don't we just send up this Ralts? Now, okay, I'll draw for turn. We get another Psychic Energy. Well, that's not bad, right? That's not bad at all. I don't really have a ton going on in the hand, so I'm going to play Judge after I attach this energy for turn. I want to attach it to the Ralts so I can discard it and move this Weird Deer up eventually. And now we'll go ahead. We'll play Primordial Altar. Do I want this? Yeah, I'll keep it. Maybe, actually, I would probably Judge first. Judge first and then Primordial Altar. Because if I have a way to draw, which I do with the Radiant Greninja, assuming I get an energy. So I could have used that energy to attach to the Greninja to draw 2 before I play Judge. But, you know, we're still trying to figure it all out. Really, all I want to do is, assuming my opponent has like some big, massive... Stage 2 EX in play, or big Stage 1 EX, maybe a V-Star, V-Max, whatever. Weird Deer here can do a lot of damage. So, if I want to do like 300 damage, I need quite a few energies on there. I need 6 to do 320. I need 5 to do, whatever. Because 6 times 4 is quite a bit, so... So we judged, we draw 4. I don't know if I did my math right. I'm trying to like do math and talk at the same time and shuffle and count. It's just, I don't think I did that right. Hey, look, here's a Curlia. So we can evolve. I don't want to evolve this Curlia yet, by the way. If you notice, retreat cost of 2, retreat cost of 1. So not a good idea. So what I do is I can choose, now I can Primordial Altar. Do I want to keep this Psychic Energy? No, I don't. Now I can discard this Psychic Energy to draw 2. Another Curlia. Okay, not great. But I can Level Ball, which maybe you Level Ball first to find another Ralts before you play the Primordial Altar and Greninja so that you thin the deck out a little bit more. So we go ahead and do all this. Okay, we just get a little more shuffling. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Gardevoir Psychic Embrace. I'm going to get all these energies. I got 5 energies that I can get onto this Gardevoir, right? Because it has to go onto a Psychic Pokemon, and it can't knock them out. So I can't put it onto one of these because I'll start knocking them out. Now, I could spread the damage. Could I do like 40 damage here, 40 damage here, 20 damage here. Yeah, I could, but we have the Cheryl in the deck. So now I'm doing 5 times 20, because I put 5 energy on this thing, and now it takes 100 damage. So that's 6 and 4. Now I go ahead, I discarded this energy so that I can, once I get all this energies onto the Pokemon, I can now discard this to retreat, and then use the ability Frontier Road to move all these energies to the Weirdeer. Now it's out of the active, I can evolve it, and I got a couple of Curliers, so I can discard a card to draw 2. Okay, and now I attack for a lot of damage, 4, 8, 12, 16, 24, 28, 280 damage. It's enough to knock out Pokemon V-Star. Stage 2 EXs is going to be enough to knock out a lot of stuff that your opponent has in play at this point in the game. So it's just a quick, rough idea of how this deck could work. Now I have all this damage onto the, this should be a 4. I have all this damage onto the Gardevoir. Later, I'd be able to potentially find Cheryl. And if I had Cheryl in hand, let's say this is a brand new turn. We have all these energies in the discard. I attach for turn. I use the Gardevoir's ability. Put all these energies on there. Take my damage. Now I can retreat, send up the Weirdeer, move the energies over because it came into the active, and now there's no energies on this thing. I can play Cheryl to heal all this damage, and now this Gardevoir never even took anything, and I'm still hitting for 280 damage on this Weirdeer. If I'm able to find switches, things like that, it would be a little even easier. I can get more energies onto this Weirdeer because I can attach for turn, and now I got 6 energies pretty quickly. So maybe instead of Primordial Altar, Beach Court might be a worthy inclusion. Maybe you want to include extra switches. We are going to be losing Air Balloon, which is very, very unfortunate. It would make this deck a lot better, but who knows, maybe in the future we find some type of tool card that has retreat. We get Float Stone, we get Escape Board, we get Air Balloon, we get something like that back. But there you go, Gardevoir EX. There's a deck profile and just some very basic strategies. I hope you enjoyed, found it informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff, and I will see you next time.